Hola, clase. I'm just going to go over really quickly what we have to do for this week. We did talk a little bit on Tuesday, but just as reminders. So for today, on Thursday, the 8th, you were supposed to do that discussion board, which is right here, the 6-2. Please make sure you complete that. I did give you model answers. So if you look, nobody responded yet, but I did show you how to respond. If I'm asking you tienes, you're going to respond with tengo. So try your best to do that list. Or those questions 1 through 4. I will be grading these if I see repeatedly that nobody's answering, and I do want you to be able to answer these questions for the next class, so please practice by writing them. The next thing you were supposed to submit today was that AR verb assignment. You have to do the practice and just make sentences as best as you can. We will review those on Tuesday when I see you. And then also you had your Exploraciones Gramaticales 3, which is due for today, Thursday. And then for that was your Lexicas dos was due for today. That was your vocabulary about the university. So that's what you had to do. And I did ask you to please play the audio so you can learn the vocabulary and pronounce it. For tonight, you're going to be doing Exploraciones Gramaticales 3. This is due by Monday at midnight or 11:59 p.m. And that's with the verb tener. And then you do have an AR verb quiz in Blackboard. It is not open yet, but I will be opening it for you to complete. So please complete that before Monday. So what I want to do first is just do a little bit of review. So remember in Espanol that we have something called subject pronouns like we do in English. So when you make your verb chart, so if we were conjugating our verbs, we would have yo would be I, tú would be you, and then we have él and ella and usted. That's the third person singular. And that also, that's he or she or it. That's where we talk about it. Like if we're talking about la clase or the class or the restaurant, that would be it. That's that third person singular. So you have first person singular, second person singular, and then third person singular. And then we're going to go into plural. So I plus anybody else becomes we, and that's going to be nosotros, and that's your first person plural, nosotros. And then if it's you plus somebody else, that becomes vosotros, that's y'all. These are your subject pronouns. We're not doing our verbs at this moment, just subject pronoun review. And then él plus somebody else, he plus somebody else becomes they or ellos. She plus somebody else becomes ellas, they females. And then usted becomes ustedes. And I use it as you guys. Some people use it as to say you formal for a group of people. So let's just look at these examples here. If we had Mr. Garcia, which subject pronoun would we use for Mr. Garcia? So we're looking at that list that we just made. Would it be yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, or ustedes? So for that one, it's going to be él because it's a he. So it's the same as he. So we would use the same conjugation for that third person singular if we were conjugating the verb. Then I, that's going to be yo. Mrs. Nunez, that's going to be ella. All of us, that's going to be nosotros or nosotras if we were all girls. The kids are los niños. That's going to be ellos if it were all males or at least one male in there. You as an adult, if I'm talking to you and I'm being formal, that's going to be usted, sometimes abbreviated as UD, usted. You as a child, remember we're not going to be formal with children. That's going to be tú. And we all ladies, that's going to be nosotras. Okay, and then down here, we want to write the plural form. So what is the plural form of yo? If we have like mis amigos y yo, that's going to be nosotros or nosotras. The plural of ella is going to be ellas. The plural of usted is ustedes or you guys. The plural of él He is ellos. And the plural of tú is vosotros. So those are all your plural forms. So then what we want to do here is we want to make the sentences plural. So put in the pronoun. Instead of Maria, we want to say Maria is my friend. We want to say she is my friend. So which subject pronoun? And if you don't know your subject pronouns, if you could jot them down in a notebook and just have them so that if you can't see it on my screen that you're still referencing them. They're really important now. And when we do other verbs, you're going to have them repeated a lot. So you should know them at this point. So for Maria es mi amiga, what are we replacing Maria with? It should be ella. So we would say ella es mi amiga instead of Maria. So we're referring to Maria as ella. What about Oscar es mi hermano? What would we replace Oscar with? We're going to replace Oscar with él. So we would say él es mi hermano. Marco y yo. So it's Marco and I. We're going to replace, remember, yo plus anybody else becomes nosotros. So that would be nosotros somos primos. We're going to change it because son is for ellos. And then we have Elena y Tomás. So Elena and Thomas, that's two people. We want to refer to them as ellos instead of their names. Ellos son mis abuelos. They are my grandparents. And then I have Anita y Nina, two girls. We're going to also refer to them as ellas. So I just wanted to practice a little bit on those subject pronouns and make sure that you know them. And if you see a name in a sentence and you have to translate, that you could do that and know which conjugation to use. So part of the work that I asked you to do was to review these vocabulary words. I'm in the ebook right now, and you can go in the ebook too. It's right in your Mind tab. It's the Exploraciones ebook, and you can see this. But I did want you to play the audio and just go through the vocabulary and pronunciation because some of those words are a little difficult, like biología, química. I want you to be able to pronounce them correctly. But let's just look at the places around campus. So we have, let's just repeat after me, la residencia estudiantil, and that's like the dorm. La librería. That's the bookstore, not the library, because la biblioteca is the library. El centro estudiantil. That's going to be like the student center or where you hang out like for food and all that. La cafetería. That's where you would eat, or sometimes we say el café. Then we have el gimnasio, the gym. El estadio, the stadium. El auditorio, the auditorium. And el laboratorio is your laboratory. So what I want you to do is just tell me which places you would do these following activities. So for número uno, I have tomar una siesta. Tomar una siesta. And in English, to take a nap. So let's just tell me where you would do that. Just type it in. Número dos, I have escuchar un concierto. Escuchar un concierto. So just write in the place that you would escuchar un concierto, a concert. Número tres, I have comprar libros. And we know that our verb comprar means to buy or compare prices we bought to buy. So where would you comprar un libro? Just type it in. Número cuatro, I have mirar un partido de fútbol. And football is not football, it's actually soccer. In Espanol, fútbol americano is like the Bills or the Jets. So mirar un partido de fútbol, where would that be? Just type it in. Then we have tomar café con unos amigos. We know tomar means to take, or in this case, to drink coffee con amigos. Where would you do that? Then we have estudiar en silencio. Where would you do that? Just type it in. And then we have usar un microscopio. Usar un microscopio. Where would that be? And then the last one we have is practicar deportes. And deportes are sports. So practicar deportes. Where would you do that? So I'm just going to play a video for you, and then we'll answer some questions. Then I'm going to go into the verb tener to teach you that today. So just observe the video, and then I'll ask you some questions at the end.
Hola Santiago, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, Paula. Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
Regular. Tengo 2 clases de psicología este semestre y son muy difíciles. Tengo que estudiar mucho. Nosotros tenemos mucha tarea y hay varios estudiantes que tienen miedo de recibir una mala nota. ¿Tienes tú una clase difícil este semestre?
Okay. So that was the dialogue. We can see it here on the screen too. She said, tengo 2 clases de psicología este semestre y son muy difíciles. So we did learn that difícil is difficult. We're saying difíciles because we're talking about las clases. And then she said, tengo que estudiar mucho. So in Spanish, when we want to say that we have to do something, we're using the verb tener, we're conjugating it, and then we're using que plus the infinitive of what we have to do. So tengo que estudiar mucho. Then she says, nosotros tenemos mucha tarea y hay varios estudiantes que tienen miedo de recibir una mala nota. So we're saying that we have a lot of homework, and there are varios estudiantes, various students que tienen miedo, that they have fear or they are afraid de recibir, to receive una mala nota, a bad grade. And then she says, ¿tienes tú? Do you have una clase difícil this semester? So what I'd like you to do down here, let's first go over the conjugations of tener, just so you know what they are. So as usual, we're going to make our verb chart, or 6-pack we call it, and we just want to conjugate. So just like the verb ser, remember we had ser, to be, that was irregular. So that means that there's some verbs in Spanish that are regular and some that are irregular. They follow their own pattern. Tener is an example of an irregular verb, just like ser. But verbs like hablar, yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, nosotros hablamos, they have a very regular pattern that is the same for all the regular AR verbs. But verbs like tener, to have, these do not have a regular pattern. These are irregular, and this is where you have to memorize them. So please just copy these down in your notes so that you have them. You're going to be using them. This is a very important verb in Spanish. So we have yo, and the yo form is going to be tengo. So we've been practicing a little bit when I say cuántos hermanos tienes, how many brothers do you have? And you said tengo 2 hermanos, yo tengo. And then to say you, it's tú. And then the verb is tienes. So as you see, we're still taking off our ER, but there's a little bit of a spelling change where E goes to IE, and then we're using ES at the end instead of AS, like with the AR verbs that we know so far. And then remember él or ella or usted, that's going to be, or it could be this conjugation, that's going to be tiene. So you could say like, él tiene un perro, he has a dog, or él tiene 3 hermanos, he has 3 brothers and sisters. Then we have nosotros, and that's going to be tenemos. Vosotros, and that's going to be tenéis. And this is going to be like y'all have. This is going to be we have. Just make sure you put those in I have. It's the same. We always do I, you, he, she, you formal. So you have. This is informal. You have. And then we have él, ella, usted tiene. That's he or she or you formal. Have, has. And then it also could be it has. Then we have ellos, which we need to put in there, or mis amigos, or ellas, or ustedes. and that's going to be tienen. That's your form of the verb. And that's they or you all have. So those are the conjugations of tener, to have. And you do need to memorize those just like you did with ser. Remember, you have yo soy, tú eres, él es, nosotros somos, ellos son. That's your ser. This is another irregular verb, tener, that you just need to know the conjugations of. So not only does tener work just as I have, you have, she has, just to say whatever you have, but there are different little expressions that we have in Spanish. So for example, if I say, ¿cuántos años tienes? If I ask you, ¿cuántos años tienes? I'm asking you, how old are you? And you might say, oh, tengo 20 años. So in Spanish, we say I have 20 years instead of I am 20 years. So another thing we might say is, tengo mucho calor. I am very hot. Not just the temperature, ¿verdad? You could say, tú tienes mucho cuidado. You are very careful. So that's another expression that we have. Ella tiene, and I'm just using up here examples. Ella tiene éxito. She is successful. You could say, tenemos mucho frío. We are very cold. So I'm using tenemos up here. We're just using the form of tener plus frío to be cold. Tener ganas de plus infinitive. So with these infinitives, these are a little bit trickier because you have to use two verbs. So for example, we could say something like, oh, tenemos ganas. We have like excitement or joy de. So it's tenemos ganas de estudiar. We are excited to, or let's put a different one, de ir a la fiesta. So we are excited to go to the party. So we're using tenemos ganas de, which is the expression. We're conjugating tener, and then we're putting an infinitive after. Tenemos ganas de ir a la fiesta. Or we can say, tú tienes ganas de dormir. What would that be in inglés? Tú tienes ganas de dormir. Or we could say, ella tiene ganas de hacer ejercicio. So to do exercise. So what am I saying there? Ella tiene ganas de hacer ejercicio. So that's an example of how we're using tener ganas plus de plus infinitive to say something that you're excited to do. The next one we have is tener hambre. So I might say, yo tengo hambre, I am hungry. Or tú tienes hambre, you are hungry. Or ella tiene hambre. So we're just going to be plugging in those tener conjugations to say that someone's hungry. We could also say, vosotros tenéis miedo. Y'all are very afraid. Tener prisa. And this mucha just means that it's a lot of it. If you see that in there, so you are in a big hurry. Tienes mucha prisa. You are in a big hurry. So this next one's the other tricky one where we say tener que plus infinitive with something you have to do. So for example, I might say, so it's tener plus que plus infinitive. So we're going to conjugate the first verb always, like we did with tener ganas de, but the second verb is going to stay in the infinitive. That means we're not conjugating it. We're leaving it in the AR, ER, or IR form. So I could say, tengo que estudiar. What am I saying there? Tengo que estudiar. Or I could say, tienes que cocinar. What am I saying there? So you're saying that you have to, for tengo que estudiar, I have to study. Tienes que cocinar, you have to cook. So we're using tener plus que plus infinitive. Then we can also say, ella tiene que bailar. What am I saying there in inglés? She has to dance. Nosotros tenemos que hablar español. Hablar español durante la clase. So what am I saying there? we have to speak Spanish during class. So you're going to see those in your mind tap. There's more. We have tener mucha razón. So if I say tengo mucha razón, I'm saying I am right, or tengo razón, I am right. Tengo mucha sed, I am very thirsty, or tienes mucha sed, you are very thirsty. So you can plug in any of these forms to say that someone is thirsty, or someone is right, or someone is in a hurry. Tener sueño is to be tired, so we can say tenemos sueño. We have tiredness, literally, but that's how we say to be tired. And then there's one more, tener suerte, to be lucky. So if I say tienes suerte, you have luck, or you are lucky. So, and we do know that unlike the adjectives that have to agree with the nouns that they modify, with these you do not have to change frío to fríos, because you're talking about mis hermanos. It would just be they have cold or coldness. Tienen frío. You don't change frío to agree with hermanos. And the same thing with sueño. You say mi hermana tiene sueño. You don't say sueña, because it's just the expression that we're using for that. So using some of those sentences, what I would like you to do is just form a sentence saying what they are. So, por ejemplo, we have this cat. We want to say the cat is thirsty, or she has thirst. So let's look back at our list here. Please write these down if you don't have them. You can pause it here and just make sure that you have the list so that you're studying them too, because you do need to review them while you're doing your activities and just for the next classes. So what would we say for el gato? El gato is an example of it. So that would be the él, ella, usted. So what would we say? We would say, instead of él, ella, usted, we would just say el gato, because that's the subject. El gato. And your answer should have been el gato tiene sed. Tiene, he has or she has. And what about ellos? ¿Qué tienen ellos? What do they have? For B here, this picture with these people watching a movie. ¿Qué tienen? What do they have? So you're going to write a sentence for me, ellos, and then you want to tell me they have fear. So the answer should have been ellos tienen miedo. They are afraid. What about this one? ¿Qué tienen ellos? What do they have? Looks like they're eating here. So what would they have? So for say, we should have said ellos tienen hambre. They have hunger. And then for de, we want to say a sentence for him. ¿Qué tiene él? So we're going to start with él for this one because it's he. For de, it should have been él tiene sueño. He has tiredness. And then ¿qué tiene ella? For e. Let's say that she has she is excited to celebrate. So we're going to use that tener ganas de, to feel like celebrating. So let's try that. That one should have been ella tiene ganas de celebrar, because we're using tener plus que, tener ganas de plus infinitive. So we'd say ella tiene ganas de, and then we're using the infinitive celebrar, to celebrate. And then the last one we have is F. And we want to say que tiene ella. It looks like she's in a hurry. So we want to start with ella. Ella tiene, and which one would it be for her? Ella tiene prisa. She is in a hurry. So I want to do a little practice with tener with age, because it is used a lot this way. So we have some questions here. So we have ¿Cuántos años tiene tu profesor de inglés? And then the student answered mi profesor, and he said probablemente, because he doesn't know, tiene 35 años. So my question here is for tú. So I'm asking you, ¿cuántos años tienes? How old are you? And you want to answer that question for me. So you would say something like, tengo 18 años. Hopefully you answered that correctly. ¿Cuántos años tiene tu mejor amigo? So now we want to say, ¿cuántos años tiene tu mejor amigo? And you want to answer that question. So you're going to start with mi mejor amigo. That's my best friend. And that's just one person. So it's going to be like the él, ella, usted. So we're going to say tiene. And then you could say something like 20 años. He has 20 years. Not he is 20 years in Spanish, but he has 20 years. So then the next question is, ¿cuántos años tiene tu profesora de la clase de español? That's me. So be nice here. ¿Cuántos años tiene tu profesora de la clase de español? So you want to answer that for me. So the subject is going to be mi profesora or ella. And then you're going to say tiene. And we'll put probablemente 22 años, right? For me. Make my day. Okay. ¿Cuántos años tiene el presidente de los Estados Unidos? El presidente. So we're going to say el presidente tiene, he has, and then what do we want to say? Like, no sé, como 68 años, no sé exactamente. And then it's, ¿cuántos años tiene tu actor favorito? So we would have started with mi actor favorito tiene 34 años. And then it says, ¿cómo se llama? And we could say, se llama Ryan Gosling. Okay, and we just have one more. ¿Cuántos años tiene tu actriz favorita? Tu actriz favorita, your favorite actress. And you could say, oh, mi actriz favorita tiene 50 años. And then you can tell me your name. Se llama Goldie Hawn. No sé. So this is a little practice with age. We're going to do more practice with tener, but you're going to do more of this in MindTap. But I did want to introduce you to the concept for your MindTap for today. Muchas gracias, estudiantes. If you have si hay preguntas, you can, puedes mandarme un correo electrónico, electronic mail or email. Muchas gracias. Adiós, amigos.